Hi everyone, this is Anomaly. Thank you so much for joining me for another video at the $5 Journey YouTube channel. Make sure you check me out on Facebook, Twitter. You can check me out on Outlook. I will make sure that I leave all my contact information in the caption below. Today, I want to talk briefly about assets versus liabilities, and the person who's going to actually help me to illustrate this is my wonderful daughter Janelle. She's here, and just say hi everybody. Say hi. Yeah, and she's gonna go and she's gonna help us out. Now, assets versus liabilities. Sometimes this is kind of like a tricky thing because some of the things that we look at as assets can also be liabilities. Some of the things that we typically look at as liabilities can also be assets. So it really all depends. So first thing is, on the on the liability side, right? All right, so we're gonna have, let's look at, we're gonna put a car up there, okay? So just write number one and then write a car on the liability side, side, right? So yeah, now, an asset, let me explain first while she's writing car up there. An asset is something that adds to your wealth, okay? It adds to you, okay? A liability is something that takes from you, okay? So an asset would be something that would give you $10. A liability would be something that takes the $10 from you, okay? All right, so now let's look at our first example, a car, okay? Now, a car can be a liability. Let's say you see, I don't know, you watch the latest hip hop video or rock video, and you see him driving around in some sort of Lexus with suicide doors, right? That go up and all that other wonderful stuff. And you say, you know what, I want to get a door, I want to get a car with doors just like that. And the car is like $80,000, right? So you get a car, it's $80,000. Now you have to make a payment on that every month, right? Because if you're like the average person, you do not have $80,000 just put out for a vehicle. All right, so let's say the car costs $80,000. You have your monthly car payment of $1,200. All right, now, so if you just look at it just based off of that scenario, right? You're just paying $1,200 every month for your car. Then it is a liability. That car is a liability because it takes money from you every month. Now, what Janelle, my lovely assistant, is going to do is she's going to write car on the other side, on the asset side. All right, now let's see how that could work. Now let's say you take that same exact car, that $80,000 Lexus that you saw in the music video, and you're all excited and you get it, and you say, you know what? I've been listening to the $5 Journey YouTube channel, and you know what? I want to make this liability into an asset. So what I want to do is I want to take $120, $130. I want to start a luxury car chauffeuring company, right? And you take that new car, that $80,000 car, and you say, you know what? I know the payments are $1,200 a month, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make enough money where I'm going to make $6,000 a month off of that vehicle. All right, so now that vehicle has become an asset because it is no longer, you still have to pay $1,200 a month, but you offset that $1,200 with the $6,000 a month because you're using it for business purposes. So that means that your net equity that you're left with at the end, right? When you take your assets and your liabilities and you subtract your liabilities from there, you're left with, in that example, you're left with $4,800, right? So you're left with an extra $4,800. Okay, so that's an example of how a car can be a liability or it can be an asset. Now let's look at something else. Okay, let's write a house on the asset side. Now remember, a house is anything that or an asset is anything that adds to your value, right? And a lot of times what we do is if we're applying for a loan or if we're maybe discussing things with our friends, they ask us about our assets, we say, yeah, who's going to be discussing this kind of stuff with your friends? But anyways, just indulge me for a little bit. So they'll say, okay, yeah, my asset is my house, but their house, they're paying $2,000 a month for their house, for their mortgage and all that other wonderful stuff, right? So so they'll say that their house is an asset when really, Janelle, right here at number 2, house. Your house is not an asset in that scenario. Your house is a liability, right? Because it's taking $2,000 a month from you. Okay, it's not adding $2,000 a month. But let's say you were smart and you said, you know what? I've read the $5 Journey, I've seen the videos, and I am ready to turn this from a liability into a true asset. And so what you do is, let's say instead of taking a regular house, right? You're gonna say, I'm gonna use this as an investment property. Okay, so maybe you'll buy a 2-family house or a 3-family house or something along those lines, right? And you're paying $2,000 a month on it. But let's say it's a 2-family house and you're getting $1,500 a month from one tenant and $1,500 a month from another tenant. So now you're bringing in $3,000 a month. So yes, of course, you have to pay out the $2,000 a month for mortgage and whatever else, right? But you're bringing in $3,000 a month. So now you have $1,000 a month net profit, right? You have $1,000 a month equity, all right, in the green every month. Okay, so now that house, instead of it being a liability, it is an asset. Okay, so let's see, one other thing. Okay, number 3, we're gonna write on the liability side, we're gonna write iPhone. All right, so iPhone. Are you saying, where did you get an iPhone from? Okay, I don't know, these are just examples. Okay, so iPhone, sometimes we say, oh yeah, these phones, they cost so much money, and they're poor people shouldn't have them, or working class people shouldn't have them. They're they should spend their money on healthcare and all this other stuff. Well, part of that may be true, but here, check this out. So the $5 Journey, with this channel, I believe that a lot of things can be used, where once they could have been liabilities, let's figure out a way to take those things and put them to assets. Okay, so yeah, an iPhone, you have to make the payment. I think, right now at this time, I have a 7, but there's like the iPhone 8 out and the iPhone X, and they cost several hundred, $800, maybe $900. Okay, so yes, that would be a liability potentially, right? And then you have your monthly payment and all that other wonderful stuff, right? But let's say you decide to start Ubering, right? I don't know, you have your job. Let's say you start Ubering as like a side hustle, right? Because you want to take that side hustle money and just bank it, right? And you use your iPhone, right, as your Uber device to figure out who you have to pick up, or if Uber delivers, what meals and restaurants you have to pick up. So let's say you do that, right? Now your iPhone has moved from the liabilities column, Janelle, into the assets column. Okay, so now your iPhone has become an asset, right? Because you're able to use it to generate money. Now let's say off of that iPhone, yeah, okay, you paid $700 for, or $800 for, right? And let's say you have a monthly payment of, I don't know, let's say you have a monthly payment of $100, right? So so after you pay the $700, now you have an ongoing monthly payment of $100. All right, so, but let's say with that, you're doing Uber, you're doing Lyft, you're doing maybe something else. Maybe you're doing, you're doing Airbnb, or you're doing some other kind of business. Maybe you're advertising online with something, and you're using your iPhone to kind of check it and keep up with social media and stuff like that. All right, and let's say from that, you're bringing in $1,000 per month, right? So now your iPhone is no longer a liability, but an asset. All right, so you see how all these things can be used either as liabilities or they can be used as assets. Now, one of the things I want to just mention, so there's a singer, Mary J. Blige. Now, she's an R&B singer. I really enjoy her music and everything. Just recently it was put out in the news that she was $25 million in debt. All right, $25 million in debt. Now, I'm sure she's still driving like a nice car and she has a certain upkeep and things like that. That's because she has what's called cash flow. So she has cash flow, she has cash coming in, right? But the problem is that she has a lot of liabilities. So she has maybe a lot of debt or a lot of bills she has to pay. So she may very well in a month have $5 million coming in, but then she may have $5.5 million going out, right? So sometimes that happens as well. So you can have a good cash flow, which is what you need. You need several different revenue streams, seven different cash flows coming in, right? But you can still have a lot of liabilities that kind of erase any potential profit from the cash flows. All right, so here's another example. You can have a house, right? It may not necessarily be a huge liability. Maybe it's a $10 million house, right? So, it's worth the $10 million, right? It's all paid off and everything. But let's say you owe $10,000 in property taxes on it, but you have no cash flow coming in, right? Then you can't pay the $10,000 in taxes, right? So you definitely need to have assets. You need to have cash flow coming in. You need your liabilities to be less than that, all right? So you need your liabilities to be less than that cash flow, less than your assets, all right? Because at the end of everything, at the end of the cash flow, at the end of the assets, you want to be ahead or above or bringing in more than your liabilities, okay? And we'll get into, a little bit more about equity and a little bit more about cash flow a little bit later on, okay? But I really want you guys to get this down, assets versus liabilities. Start thinking about that cash flow, the revenue streams coming in, all right? And bringing them up past your liabilities, because what you're gonna do is, remember, we've spoken about debt. You want to get rid of any bad debt, all right? You want to get rid of any kind of debt that pulls from you. That's liabilities, they pull from you, right? And you want to add assets. You want to add cash flows. You want to add revenue streams in. So you can offset that, pay off your debt, pay off those things, and start putting that money into your own financial vehicles, right? So that's it for now. Thank you so much to my wonderful assistant, Janelle. And if you guys have any comments, make sure you leave them in the caption below, and check me out on the various platforms. Okay, thanks so much. Remember, it is not a sprint, but it is a $5 journey. Take care.